Well, good morning, everyone. We can get started. Can you hear me okay? Good. All right. Good morning, Zoomers. You're good? All right. Great. Well, welcome to the Sunday morning practice group. It's a wonderful time to come together with community. Mark Nunberg, one of the co-guiding teachers, normally guides this group, as most of you know. And he called in sick this morning. He called me up and said, "Hey, I'm just not feeling well, and can you step in for me?" So I think it's been, in 30 years of teaching, this may be the very first time Mark has called in sick. So we'll just wish him well. And my name's Wynn Fricke. Mark is my partner. I'm a co-founder of Common Ground with him, and I teach at McAllister College in the Department of Theater and Dance, but I'm a longtime practitioner, and I always really appreciate having the opportunity to offer the Dhamma when I can. Wondering if anyone is here for the first time today. Okay, great. Well, welcome. Welcome. So, because I've had little time to prepare, I thought what I would do would give a version of a talk about conceit that I gave last week, and talk also about the Brahma Viharas. And then we could be a little more casual today, have a conversation, Q&A, see what comes up for you in the talk, and for Zoomers and for people who are present. And I think ultimately we will take this talk offline so everyone can feel comfortable. We're just speaking in the group today. So, all right. Well, we'll begin with the chant on page 30. This is the Four Quarters chant. And so the idea with the suffusion, with the divine abidings, is that we tune into these powerful qualities of heart, of kindness, compassion, of gladness, of equanimity, and we send them in all directions, to the front, side, back, other side, above and below, sort of surrounding of variations of kindness. So now let us make the four boundless qualities shine forth. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a mind imbued with compassion. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with compassion, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without. I will abide, pervading 1/4, with a mind imbued with gladness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with gladness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading 1/4, with a mind imbued with equanimity. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. We'll take 30 minutes for a guided sit. Please make yourself comfortable, just settling easily into your body, into this seated position. In a very simple way, we move from a world of thinking and language into a world of sensation. So the language of the body is one of sensation. And those sensations can fill the mind. So how do we know we have a body? What is this felt experience? So we might first have a sense of weight, a downward pull of gravity, heaviness, the sense of the firmness of the sits bones against the cushion or chair. And we can help the body to relax, to gently release into its own weight, trusting the support of the ground beneath us. And in the same way, we can relax the muscles that are not needed, the muscles around the belly, around the rib cage, the muscles in the face. Feel the weight of the shoulders drop away from the ears. And let your breath move freely. Oh, to know the body is to feel the body. We're not observing from a distance. We're right in the middle of our experience, sensing, feeling. All the movement, the places of heat and coolness. Firmness and softness. Flow and contraction. And let this attention be simple, receptive. Feeling the body can be as effortless as hearing sound. We just receive what's here. And as the mind settles, you can focus more narrowly on the movement of the breath as a way to gather and unify the mind. We can feel the breath broadly, or we can choose a particular point where the breath is strong, where the sensations are clearer, like the movement of the abdomen or the tip of the nose. As we breathe in, we simply know that we're breathing in. As we breathe out, we know we're breathing out. And we can settle into those quiet spaces between the in-breath and the out-breath. Each part is important. Feeling the whole of the in-breath, feeling the whole of the out-breath, and the subtle pause between. And let the mind rest here. And we approach our practice with care, with an understanding that this is a training. Our mind is like a puppy that wants to run around. It's natural. But in training the puppy to be on the paper, we just bring it back again and again and again. No judgment. Just be easy, be soft. Be easy, be soft, and at the same time firm with the intention. Learn to be steady with the mind. We first learn to be steady with the body. Moment to moment to moment. Every now and then we can drop in the question, am I feeling the body? Am I connected to the body? Please take a moment to stretch, to stand, to be comfortable. Well, once again, welcome everyone. Great to see you on this Sunday morning. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'll do a version of this talk on conceit, which is a powerful and important concept in the Buddhist teaching that I gave earlier in the week. And then I'd like to add some thoughts about the Brahma Viharas, these powerful universal qualities of heart, healing qualities of heart. And then I think we can just take this unusual opportunity of Mark not being here, that we can just have a conversation in the room to see what questions arise for you, reflections that you have on some of the ideas that I'll offer. So, all right, so conceit. The Pali word for conceit is mana. And it's one of the painful sources of suffering. And it's a defilement that clouds the mind. So it's a construction, right? It's built. So the Buddha's words, what is the fetter of conceit? Conceit at the thought, I am the better one. Conceit at the thought, I am as good as they. Conceit at the thought, I am lowly. All such sort of conceit, overweening conceitedness, loftiness, haughtiness, flaunting a flag, assumption, desire of the heart for self-advertisement. This is called conceit. And this is an obstruction in our practice, and it's universal. This is a universal pattern. And it's the very last of the defilements to leave us. It's there even after all greed and aversion is uprooted. This sense of self, this very subtle sense of self as separate, conceit. So we can make friends with conceit as we get to know conceit and really let go of judgment, because conceit is here as our shadow and as our friend to be investigated. So conceit is built on the judging mind and is a form of craving for becoming. And the Buddha said it should be regarded as madness. So I think the word mana is a little easier to keep in the mind than conceit. Conceit has a really specific meaning in the English language. It's really about self-aggrandizement, superiority, but it's more rounded. The Pali word is more rounded. And one of the direct translations is measuring. The mana mind measures. I'll just read this. It's the mind of delusion in which mental processes impose a sense of permanence and sense of separateness to our experience. There's a fabrication of an I, which occurs mostly in comparison with other individuals, other groups of people, but also in comparison to ourselves. There's a self-preoccupation and a sense of this is me and everything out there is other. So conceit is a kind of investment in the comparing mind. And I think it's mostly an unseen investment. We believe in the value of comparing ourselves to others, even in comparing ourselves to ourselves, even comparing ourselves to an idea of who we think we should be, or comparing ourselves to how we used to be. Any kind of comparing, right? This goes on in it's like a motor all the time, right? Like even as we walk into a room, comparing clothing, comparing bodies, comparing ages, comparing comparing, right? It's like moment to moment activity. And to see it like this is natural to the mind. This is a natural pattern, an impersonal pattern that's universal. So as we observe it, it can be seen as such and really not judged. Like we can have a lightness about this activity of mind, even though it is a source of suffering, but that can also motivate us to be interested. So the Buddha described three mana. The first is superior mana, which is basically pride. This is where we place ourselves above others, whether it's our attainments, abilities, physical attributes, economic status. We have an idea that in some measure we are better than another. And we tend to like this, right? It's associated with a pleasant and expansive feeling. So when we notice superiority, touch into what's happening bodily, what's happening pleasurably, like notice that this has some form of satisfaction that comes with it, and that's partly what propels it. So this needs to be seen. Inferior mana, this is where there's an evaluation of oneself as being inferior to another in some attribute or another. One feels less than. And we don't like this. And it's associated with an unpleasant feeling. We can feel that in the heart. We can feel that in the weight of the body. We can feel that very poignantly if we tune in, this feeling less than. Is it? Thank you. I'll speak up and just let me know. And equality. So there's equality mana, which is even more sort of surprising. A notion that in some measure, one is equal to another. We tend not to notice this perception as much, but it's still based on a delusion of separation and permanence. So this is the Buddha's words again. One who thinks oneself equal to others, or superior or inferior, for that very reason makes argument. But one who is unmoved under these three conditions, for that person, the notions equal, superior, and inferior do not exist. For one who is free from views, there are no ties. For one who is delivered by understanding, there are no follies. But those who grasp after views and philosophical opinions, they wander about in the world, annoying people. So the Buddha said, when we see the mind and body clearly, when we penetrate the experience of the mind and body with insight, that there is no possibility of conceit. I find that really hopeful, really powerful, that it's a matter of seeing deeply, seeing with penetration. And pride, a sense of pride. Steve Armstrong said, the delusion of permanence pervades pride. It's a little bit like the Buddha's words of the intoxication of youth. Right? So these perceptions, based on measuring ourselves against others, they may be in passing, they may be casual, they may be unnoticed, which is the bulk of them, but they also may take on great weight. So noticing the places in our lives where we're really identified, where we're really, have a very strong sense of less than, or strong sense of better than, or unworthiness, these really poignant poignant states of heart that we can be trapped by, really plagued by. So this contraction, Buddha called it a contraction, this sense of self, is actually a fabrication, something we erect in a moment, right? Moment to moment to moment. This contraction can occur also as one identifies as a member of a group, a family, a country, a gender, a race, an age, or a religion. So this can be a frame of practice. Like we can really decide, I'm just going to notice this. I'm going to notice this pattern in the mind and its power, the force of it in the mind. So, when I first heard this teaching, I was so grateful. I was so grateful that, this is something that can be witnessed and studied and observed and not bought into as much anyway. And just noticing in just the most chill way, okay, there's a superior mana right now. There's an inferior mana right now. There's an equal mana right now. And it's happening all the time. That can be a really powerful object of our meditation. And then, as I said before, noticing with that thought, with that view, notice what's happening in the body. Notice the feeling of pleasure or displeasure associated. So right away, tune in. Why does this have power? What is the association? And it's usually something we feed, right? It's something we perpetuate. And this goes unseen. It's going to skip a lot. I want to read these words of Ajahn Sumedho, who's been a really important teacher he's from the Thai, a senior disciple from the Thai forest tradition, and a monk of many years. And his teacher was Ajahn Chah. And he's talking about his time when he was in the monastery and still learning to speak Thai, and he had to give Dharma talks in Thai. And this was before he was comfortable with the language. And these are his words. It says, Longpo Cha would always encourage me to keep aware of the pride, the conceit, the embarrassment, and the self-consciousness that I would feel. And fortunately, in Thailand, the people are such that they're just grateful for a monk giving a talk. Even if it's not a very good talk, it doesn't seem to upset them very much. They still seem quite grateful about it. So it made it quite easy. One time at a katina, and this is an almsgiving ceremony, where we had to sit up all night, Ajahn Chah said, Sumedho, you have to give a talk for 3 hours tonight. And up until that time, I'd only talked for half an hour, and that was a strain, 3 hours. And he knew, Ajahn Chah always felt, with Ajahn Chah, I always felt that if he said something, I'd do it. So I sat up on the high seat and talked for 3 hours. And I had to sit there and watch people get up and leave. And I had to sit there and watch people just lie down on the floor and sleep in front of me. And at the end of 3 hours, there were still a few polite ladies sitting there. That wasn't Ajahn Chah saying, okay, Sumedho, go in there and bowl them over with some scintillating stuff. Entertain them, really sock it to them. I began to realize that what he wanted me to do was to be able to look at this self-consciousness, the posing, the pride, the conceit, the grumbling, the lazy, the not wanting to be bothered, the wanting to please, the wanting to entertain, the wanting to get approval. All these have come up during these talks of the past 15 years. But the meditation is one in which more and more one feels a real understanding of the suffering of self-view. And then through that insight, one realizes the abiding in emptiness. And another thing that I have found helpful in this practice of noticing mana noticing the pleasure, noticing the pain associated, is to notice the subtle harm. Like there's a little taste of like wholesome, unwholesome. We don't like those words, but there's just some like a subtle harm when we feel a judgment, when I have a sense I'm better than you in some subtle way, or the harm to ourselves that I'm not worthy, I'm less than you. And really touch into that. And that can motivate us like, no, this isn't the way. This isn't the way. And we can soften and stop feeding that thing which we do unconsciously. So just this is like our first precept, right? Non-harming. Just notice it. It's just so subtle and so soft, but it's important in allowing the investigation to continue, right? Because if we're judging or whatever, we just won't want to do this investigation. But if we can feel, I don't want to harm, that can be a really powerful motivation in taking this on. So in the Buddhist teachings, there's 10 armies of Mara. So Mara is the sort of figure, this very powerful figure and personification of ignorance. So Mara is the one who kind of challenged the Buddha as he was sitting under the Bodhi tree, challenging his sense of self-worth and, these kind of ancient views that can be illuminated in all of us. So Mara has 10 armies, 10 kind of powerful facets. And 3 of them, the 8th, 9th, and 10th army, all have to do with conceit. So the 8th army is self-condemnation, a feeling of worthlessness. And I want to say too that it's not that we lose our capacity to evaluate and to discern. Like I teach at Macalester College, and I teach some courses where I really discern. There's a lot of learning I still need to do. Like that's clear, but I don't need to create a sense of self around it. Right? That's where the conceit is. Like I'm somehow shouldn't be here. I'm somehow unworthy. I'm somehow less than, because I have a lot of learning to do in this area. Right? So it's not that we're not discerning things and seeing things clearly. But it's real. Like, this has been such an edge for my practice, teaching. I teach histories of dance and cultures of dance. It's a real scholarly endeavor, this kind of seminar stuff, and my training is as a performer and as a choreographer, and it was never kind of about this very powerful and important field around history and cultures. But I'm finding myself in front of a classroom of very intelligent students, and very often just out of my depth, and very often like subject to that vulnerability, especially when students are eye rolling or whatever it may be, right? We all have our situations, right, where this comes alive for us. And so we can just maintain a softness, right? We can maintain a softness and stay connected with our bodies. We can just name, this is what's happening. It's impermanent, and I'm seeing it. I'm so grateful to see it, and to kind of not going down that path of feeding it like I used to unconsciously do, like making a self out of it, that I have to work so much harder. I have to be better. I have to, so that students never ever roll their eyes at me again. That kind of feeling, right? We all know that. But staying close to that experience, and staying close to that experience necessitates being in the body. If we're just in our thoughts, right? The papancha, the proliferation of our thoughts, we will go down that path to hell. We will. That is the power, that is the seduction of our conceiving mind. This is what the Buddha called madness. And this is the purpose of the body, why we ground in the body, why we stay present, right? The body is always present. If we're in the body, we're in the present. And that's what we want to feed. Razor thin moment, moment to moment to moment, staying close, staying interested, staying light, right? So when we come up with the unpleasantness of feeling less than, we usually don't do that. So what do? So I wrote down some things we do. We ignore, right? My mind's just not going to go there. Push that thing away, right? That's scary territory. Or we start to think about it and spin the events into a story that's more comfortable, that places us in a more favorable light, or places blame on someone else for our feeling. That eye-rolling student, they've got their own baggage, you know. That's not going to land on me, right? Just the tone, right? We can feel our own tone, our own contraction. Or we start to strategize so that we never have to feel that feeling again in the future. So we become a workaholic, or we determine never to teach again, right? We'll never put ourselves in that vulnerable position again, and our lives get very narrow. So this is our training, our bhavana. Okay, I'll just quickly go through these and then we can open it up. So the ninth army is the desire for gain, the desire for fame, to be revered. And so, of course, it's natural for all of us as human beings to act out of a need to distinguish ourselves over others in a way, right? That's sort of implied in that statement, in that force, that desire. And this is what the Buddha said about the ninth army. He said, a fatal thing, practitioners, are gains, favors, and fame, a bitter, harsh impediments to the attainment of the unsurpassed freedom from bondage. It is just like a beetle feeding on dung, full of dung, gorged with dung, standing before a great dung hill, who might despise other beetles, saying, I am a dung eater, full of dung, gorged with dung, and before me is this great dung hill. So, you know, the Buddha has talked about the eight worldly winds that are unavoidable conditions. If we take birth as humans, we will all move between these eight winds of opposites. So praise and blame, fame and disrepute, gain and loss, pleasure and pain. So this is unavoidable. And usually we strategize our life so we only ever feel the first column, right? We only want to feel praise, fame, gain, pleasure, and we do whatever we can to avoid blame, disrepute, loss, pain, right? So that takes a lot of effort, right? That's exhausting to avoid a whole set of feelings. And Ajahn Sumedho compares this to only wanting the inhale in life. We strategize so we only ever have to breathe in, and we're disappointed each time the out-breath happens. And the delusion of conceit makes us believe that praise, fame, gain, and pleasure will nourish us, will comfort us in some meaningful way. And although these experiences are unreliable, we still strive after them because we don't really know what else to do. So the Buddha offers something radical. It's radically transforming and not intuitive, right? It's intuitive, like every little organism, to run from pain and to run toward pleasure. So that there is a possibility underlying that exhausted motion, right, is really powerful. And then the 10th army is self-importance, putting others down. When we're in this place of feeling superior, we don't listen well, and we're involved with our own thoughts. We don't have the humility to learn from others. And it's the same mind that thinks it already knows the breath. So noticing this, even in your own mind, in this subtle way of thinking, you know, I already know. This is boring. I already know. So that is the 10th army of Mara. Norman Fisher, he's a Zen abbot, he says, listening, however dangerous, is a necessity. If you want to stay open to life and to change, you have to listen. To listen is to accord respect. When your mind is occupied, usually unconsciously, with your own thoughts, plans, strategies, and defenses, you are not listening. And when you are not listening, you are not according respect. The speaker knows this and reacts accordingly. I'll speak a few minutes about the Brahma Viharas as an antidote to conceit, and then we can just open it up into the room. So the Brahma Viharas, if you've been coming here for a while, you know these are also a universal quality of heart, an impersonal quality of heart, immeasurable. The Buddha called it exalted and boundless, without boundary, shared by all beings. So Brahma Vihara is a place of dwelling, and Brahma is a very powerful God without ill will, without deceit. So dwelling in a place of a deity without hate. So these qualities of heart, and we sang them at the beginning, right? Kindness, compassion, gladness, equanimity. They encompass emotion, but they're greater than emotion. This is from Mark Weber, Akichino Mark Weber. He's a psychologist, but was 20 years a monk in the Thai forest tradition. He said, the Brahma Viharas refer to something entirely unworldly in the other person. It's transpersonal, and it belongs to our shared humanity. These qualities are boundless, and we feel we are not separate. When the mind is saturated with the Brahma Viharas, we are most aware of our non-separative existence. This is the opposite of estrangement. I'll just read them briefly. So kindness, metta, and this is metta without self-reference, right? Without self-reference. Karuna, compassion, the capacity to resonate with the pain of others, to tremble along with. We meet another in their radical otherness and not in reference to our own terms or needs. We quiver with them. Mudita, gladness, the capacity to resonate with the joy of others. And it has its roots in mudu, softness, pliability. And then upekkha, equanimity. This is staying in relationship with equanimousness. And this is Mark Weber again, speaks of two things, impartiality and serenity. I stand in my place as I reach out to you. There's a quality of profound balance and centeredness. So practicing with the Brahma Viharas may be the only practice we choose to uproot conceit. You know, it is a very direct path, and with bringing attention, like probably all of us have more Brahma Viharas happening all the time than we note or notice. You know, just these ongoing, you know, when, like for me, I pass a squirrel on the way to work, and I notice the little joy. I just notice. I give it my attention. Oh, that was an impersonal, powerful moment of appreciating happiness for the scampering squirrel, right? A little gladness. And the Buddha said, what we give attention to, the wholesome qualities of mind and heart that we give attention to are strengthened. And when we give mindfulness to unwholesome qualities of heart, those qualities are weakened. So mindfulness is good with whatever's going on, right? But to pay attention to our virtue, like that's one of the things that I kind of arm myself with when I'm in these really vulnerable situations, teaching at school, for instance, or whatever. It's like, I remember, Wynn, you have no ill will here. Really, you're just trying to do your best, and you've done your best. Like, notice that, give energy to that. And then notice also, you know, just the complication of what's ever arising, just being intimate, being close, being with. The Buddha said, whatever the mind takes up, frequently ponders upon, and gives its attention to, in such a way the heart will incline. This is the last quote from Akichino Mark Weber that I'll offer. He said, and he, again, a longtime monk and a psychologist, he said, health, well-being, maturity, realization, and freedom can't be spoken about without the inclusion of the Brahma Viharas. It's an indispensable part of the path. It constitutes our humanity, and they cannot be lost. They may be buried, denied, but not lost. They are undetachable from humanity. I'm going to read one more thing. This is just a beautiful quote by Andre Comte Sponville. He writes, the simple person lives the way she breathes, with no more effort or glory, with no more affection and without shame. Simplicity is freedom, buoyancy, transparency, as simple as the air, as free as the air. The simple person does not take herself too seriously or too tragically. She goes on her way, her heart light, her soul at peace, without a goal, without nostalgia, without impatience. The world is her kingdom, and it suffices her. The present is her eternity and delights her. She has nothing to prove, since she has no appearances to keep up, and nothing to seek, since everything is before her. What is more simple than simplicity? What lighter? It is the virtue of wise women and men and the wisdom of saints.